So awkward.
I know. All right, I hope we're live. Oh, I hope we're live. Anyways, good morning, Cesar. We'll just
Good
carry on.
morning.
Yes, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Excited about another good conversation with you.
I know. So I think when was the last time you were on here? Like we had the one where you guys, like the sound was so bad. But before
Yeah, it was
that, you were on, I want to say it was like
uh,
this time, like a year ago?
yeah, it's been about a year. So I got a whole year's worth of stuff to talk about.
Awesome. Okay. Oh, I hear some feedback. We're going to be 30 seconds ahead when you and I are talking, so everybody else is 30 seconds behind us.
I'm
So
not sure what the noise is, but there's nothing going on around me.
yeah, I think it could be on the other end of who's controlling the show, but I do see us now, so there we are. I have to have my laptop so we can read the comments.
Okay.
So go ahead and introduce yourself, Caesar.
I am Cesar Rodriguez. I am a general manager for Energy Monster. We are a spray foam and fiberglass insulation company out of Largo, Florida. And I'm in recovery, and I do a lot of other stuff that we're going to talk about today.
Yes, we are. So what do you want to start with?
Um, let's think here. I've got a ton that we've done this year. So
Yeah, you've been busy.
I'll start off with, so we're trying to build what's called an RCO in our county here in Florida. That's a
Mm-hmm.
recovery community organization.
Oh,
And
okay.
basically, right, so basically it's going to be like a one-stop shop to help people in recovery. It's completely peer-led, all people that are going to be in recovery. And we are, oh, hold on, I've got somebody calling and I got to decline. So we've been having meetings for about 6 months, these planning
Mm-hmm.
meetings, and everybody in the community is welcome to have their input. It's completely community driven, and that all led up to September. We had our
Mm-hmm.
big symposium, which I would imagine is a fancy way to say like a convention or a meeting or something like that.
Right.
And everybody showed up. We probably had, I don't know, 300 people in the community that showed up, and all the experts gave their take on what these RCOs should look like. But
Mm-hmm.
basically, it's a nonprofit. So we have nonprofit status, and we're in the final planning stages now. And this is going to be what's considered a multiple pathways RCO, meaning that
Mm.
we'll be resource brokers. So anybody that's looking to get into recovery, trying to get out of addiction, alcoholism, any of those things,
Yeah.
will be able to come to the RCO. We can navigate them to treatment, to halfway houses, to meetings. If it's medication assisted therapy that they're looking for, we can navigate them to that. And that's why it's called multiple pathways, because it's not just 12-step or faith-based or anything like that.
Right.
So we're building this from the ground up. It's never been done here before, and some of the surrounding counties are doing the same thing. And there's grant money involved in it. So the government
Oh.
is putting money into these things because there's such a giant opioid epidemic going on that this
Mm-hmm.
money is funneling down, and they're trying to find ways to, help nip this thing in the butt. And they
Yeah.
found out they can't arrest their way out of it. The war on drugs has been going on for, I mean, since I was a kid, in the
Yeah.
80s, I was hearing about that, and nothing's changed. It's only got worse. So they're starting to see the
Mm-hmm.
value in people that have found recovery, peer to
Yeah.
peer, working with people that are still suffering, which is the basis of the fellowship that I'm in anyway. So I'm all on board.
Right.
And you and I had talked a little bit on Messenger about my wife's filming me.
Hi,
We had
Kelly.
talked a little bit about the recovery coach thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's played into it. I took the recovery coach training last year,
Mm-hmm.
and that is done the curriculum's done the same way. It's a multiple pathways thing. And what a recovery coach does is once you have the certification, you can go into hospitals, you can go into detoxes, anywhere, and navigate people into recovery.
Right.
So we're able to get people into hospitals right when somebody has an overdose, so we can get to them at their lowest point and navigate them somewhere where that wasn't an option before. Typically, somebody gets arrested, they go through the jail system,
Mm-hmm.
and if they're lucky, they land in a drug court or they get some kind of treatment that way. So we can hit them boots on the ground right then
Right.
and navigate them into something where we can possibly save somebody's life and keep them from
Yeah.
relapsing again.
So I've recently been reading about a lot more about how addiction is the root of addiction is this is what I've been reading, and I know there's a lot of different views of this, but the root of addiction is trauma. And
It
what
can be.
I wanted to ask you what you thought about that because I found that interesting. I would see how that definitely would obviously plays into it, but I just wanted to get your take on that and see what your thoughts are.
I couldn't do like a broad sweeping generalization, say
Mm-hmm.
that that's the root of all, because that's not my particular story, and I
Right.
suffered with it for years. Well, for most of my life, really. I'm
Mm-hmm.
coming up on 6 years sober, and I'm 43 years old. So the
You
better
should
part of my life.
Yeah, so you should give a little bit of a background on that, I think, so people who didn't see you last time maybe know more about where you've come from so they understand that.
And here's a plug for you. If you would like to see that, it is on YouTube.
Oh, is it?
Carla has
Okay.
uploaded all that.
Yes, that is right. I do have it on YouTube. Thank you.
So you could actually see that conversation.
Yes, you
But
can.
I started drinking heavy at a young age. My
Mm-hmm.
father owned a lot of bars, so it was
Mm-hmm.
real acceptable. And I mean, like 10, 12 years old. Um, my parents weren't around that much. They traveled or they were running businesses and doing what they did. And I started drinking because basically I liked the effect. All the anxieties that I had inside of me, we call them self-centered fears: fear of what people think of me,
Yeah.
fear of not getting what I want, fear of losing something that I have, all those fears and anxieties that went on in my head that made me feel
Mm-hmm.
like I wasn't good enough. Alcohol calmed those down. A drink or two, and all of a sudden, I didn't care what
Mm-hmm.
anybody thought about me. I was feeling good.
Yeah.
But the problem is, I chased that my entire life, which led to DUI after DUI, and then more drugs, anything I could do to numb myself, basically, to not have to deal with life as it was,
Mm-hmm.
or as we say, life on life's terms. It was life on my terms. I needed to be medicated, basically, to be able to deal with things.
Right.
And, that led me to being a 17-year heroin addict. So I feel extremely blessed that I found recovery, because you don't hear a lot of people 17, 18 years doing heroin that come out the other side of it and have a successful
Right.
life. Um, we see people dying in record numbers today
Mm-hmm.
because it's just everything's tainted with fentanyl, and everything is
Right.
it's terrible. And I feel extremely blessed that I got sober when I got sober, because if I hadn't, I'd have been the first one in line saying, well, everybody's dying, but I'll do it the right way. So
Right.
I know what I'm doing. I've been doing it for a long time, and I'd have been dead. So, I'm extremely grateful for the life that I have today. And it's really, my company that I work for hired me um, at under a year sober,
Right.
completely unhireable. All I had was for work history was owning my own business
Mm-hmm.
and multiple felony convictions, and they took a chance on me.
Right.
And I've worked my way up from being the lowest guy on the totem pole, doing removal, sucking out insulation, fiberglass insulation, because these were usually for pest control companies because it was rat infested.
Mm-hmm.
And I went from that to being one of the general managers in the company, and really kicking butt on sales, and I'm grateful. I'm very loyal to them. And that's what most addicts and alcoholics are, was when they get sober and you give us a break and you give us a chance,
Right.
we will bust our asses trying to show
Right.
you that you made the right decision by helping us.
If I remember right from that conversation we had before, you showed up at that for that job interview in a shirt and tie, and they put you right to
Oh,
work. Isn't that
a,
right?
a
Or
polo shirt.
a
Yeah,
polo
I had a
shirt. Yeah, you
polo
were
shirt on.
dressed. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that I was going for a job interview, and
Right.
I showed up, got a polo shirt on. I've got these heavy, nice jeans on, and the guy calls me, not the guy, my current boss, Rich,
Yeah.
says, "Hey, Sean, how you doing? Jump on that truck over there. Have a good day." And I was like, my name's not, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
So called me by the wrong name. I jump on the truck. I have no idea what they do. I knew it was a spray foam company.
Hmm.
I was picturing cans of great stuff. I was like, I guess they seal
Right.
cracks or something. I don't really understand what they do.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got thrown on a removal that day that we were doing a
Right.
retrofit and sucked all the fiberglass out. And I'm wearing those
Hmm.
heavy jeans. And this was in July that I got hired. I'm wearing jeans and I'm crawling in this low pitched attic and I'm sucking everything out.
Hmm.
And I'm really thinking about my life decisions at that point. But
Right.
I finished the day out, and
Hmm.
I showed up the next morning early, and I kept
Yeah.
showing up early because I hadn't earned a paycheck in a long time. So
Right.
it felt good to have money coming in to be able to provide something for my family, and I could sleep well at night knowing that I busted my ass that day and did the best job that I could. And I
Hmm.
took the opportunities they gave me to learn how to read blueprints. I took the opportunities to get off a removal crew and go to a spray foam crew. I ended up getting injured. A couple of
Hmm.
barrels of ISO came together on my hand and gave me this wonderful crooked finger. I shattered
Hmm.
a couple fingers.
Hmm.
And I mean, they're a good company. They said, "Well, do you want to try sales?" I was like, "I don't know.
Right.
I've never done sales." And I think we were sitting in my boss's truck, and he said, "Okay, well, sell me some blow. Sell me a job. Show
Yeah.
me how you would sell insulation." So I picked up my finger phone.
Yeah.
I made the ring ring noise. And he looked at me really weird. And I said, "Well, how am I supposed to sell you anything if I don't call for the appointment, bro? Pick up your finger phone."
This is legit.
Yes, yes. So he picked up his finger phone, and I sold him some fiberglass on that fake phone call. But
Hmm.
I've been selling spray foam ever since.
Yeah.
And we're down south, and I know all the spray foam guys are gonna, well, they call it shit pound,
Yes.
but we sell
Yes.
we sell a lot of open cell in
Yeah.
Florida. So
Yeah.
at open cell prices, I broke past $1 million of sales a month or so ago, and
Wow.
you
Good
know
for you.
I'm doing well. I get to work with the
Yeah.
crews. I get to go on the job sites and make sure everything goes well. Get to make sure that we have integrity with everything we do.
Yeah.
Doing final inspections myself, no matter how busy I get, making sure that I talk to the homeowner, make sure they're happy, and
Hmm.
that's what builds a good business, is that follow through and making sure that you deliver the best product at the best price that you can. And
Right.
that's only something that I learned from being in recovery. These principles that I've learned, I put them into practice with everything that I do. And I usually get a really good result because I tend to go above and beyond when other people won't.
Right.
Other people will bid something over a phone call, never
Hmm.
meet the person, send a crew out there, never have shaken a hand. And I've found that I get more referrals and more business just by being there and being personal and taking that extra step and finding out, you know, what are you looking for? Here's what I can do for you.
Hmm.
And I'll make sure that what I told you we're going to do and do well.
Right.
So it's exhausting sometimes because
Right.
I have to be a
Yes.
lot of places, when the numbers went from the hundreds of thousands into the over 1 million. And that's a
Hmm.
lot of jobs at open sale prices.
Right.
So We
Yeah,
we're a busy company, and
you
that's, I mean,
are.
that's just my numbers. There's two other guys that are selling the same kind of numbers as that,
Yeah.
if not
Mm-hmm.
more.
Right. So they took a chance on you, and you
Hmm.
have like dug in and worked your ass off. What are some of how have you come out of that thinking of all those things that you thought before, that you're not good enough, and all of those things? What has worked for you to overcome those for the most part, would you say?
Somebody told me that the only way to get good self-esteem
Mm-hmm.
is to do esteemable acts. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't feel less than, I don't feel any of those things because I really try my best to be the best version of myself
Mm-hmm.
every day, to be a little better than I was the day before. And if I give it my all every day, I don't
Yeah.
have a regret. And like today, if you don't like me, you don't like me just because you don't like me. It's not because I did something to you
Right.
or I let you down or anything like that. So it strips away all of that. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just, I'm doing the best that I can on a daily
Right.
basis. And if that's not good enough for you, I'm sorry, but
Right.
I don't have that anymore. I let go of
Yeah.
all the guilt and the shame of all the things in the past, and I'm working on moving forward.
And that, I think that's where people get stuck, is in that part of letting go of those very things. I've called it this is what I've always called it. It's like a very disgusting, gross, dirty security blanket that we're scared to let go of, because if we let go of that, who are we? That's our identity. It's almost like we put that as our identity, and to let go of that is scary, but you have to.
Well, I was commenting, and I forget who your guest was at the time, but
Mhm.
we were talking about that, and we're comfortable in misery
Yeah.
because it's
Right?
familiar. Change is
Yes.
scary. What's
Right.
that going to look like if I change? What if I change my whole life? What if I get sober and I don't know what that's going to look like? That's scary.
Right.
The the crap that we live in when we're
Hmm.
like that, it's comfortable. We know, like you said, the warm blanket. We know what that's going to look
Yeah.
like. It's familiar. And I mean, the scariest thing I ever did was get sober. I don't know what that was going to look like. I spent my entire life either drunk or high.
Right.
So I took my 30 years of experience in life and threw it out the door for a completely new set of principles, concepts, way of thinking. And I did it on faith that these people told me if I do these things, I'll have a better life. And I do.
Yeah.
I had to take a leap of faith, which is extremely scary.
Hmm. It is very scary. And I think,
But
again, it that goes into the whole conversation of having a community around you that is going to be there and help you and support you, just emotionally, and just like all of those things. We're human beings, and we need that connection. People can fight that and say, I don't need people, I don't need this, and I don't need that, I'm good on my own. You need the right people. You need the right people in your corner.
that was some of the things we were going to talk about last time when we had all the technical difficulties, was the
Right.
authentic human connection.
Yes.
In the more true face-to-face relationships that you have with good people, the more accountability you have.
Hmm.
It's I've learned that all those things that I used to keep in my head, the ones that told me I wasn't good enough, or
Yeah.
the resentments, all those things, I make a habit of calling people and talking about what goes on up here because I can make things into a real big deal between my
Oh,
two ears. But
it's
if I
pretty
talk about it out
amazing,
loud,
isn't it?
oh, I can
I'm pretty
create
good at that
boogeymen and all
too.
kinds. We all are. I mean, it's human
Hmm.
nature. If we don't talk about it, we just keep building it up and replaying it in
Hmm.
our head and we twist it into something that it's not.
Yeah.
But I'll just pick up the phone because I'm in my car. I have a huge area that I manage.
Hmm.
And I mean, sometimes there's 2-hour rides in between job sites. And I just make phone call after phone call, talk to people. Sometimes they need to talk to me. It goes
Yeah.
the way it's supposed to go. And sometimes I'm the one that needs to do the talking. But
Hmm.
if you can get the stuff out of your head and get it out into the light, it's usually not that big of a deal. Where if I
Mm-hmm.
keep it up there, oh man, I might have to burn the place down. Like
Right.
I get crazy.
Becomes like Mad Max all of a sudden, right?
Oh
Like
yeah, it gets
I
crazy up
know.
there.
Yes. I have just recently been in that situation and gone like, this is not working for me. I can't keep living in my head. And it tends to, like that is something that I think everybody does at some point. You get up in that hole, like get in your head, and it's the worst place to be. It is the worst. Yeah.
Yeah, we always say that not to go up there without adult supervision. That's
Right,
what we're told is,
exactly.
stay out of here unless you have adult
Yes.
supervision. But especially as men, I mean, this goes for
Yes.
anybody, but as men, we don't like to ask for help. We'll figure it
Mm-hmm.
out one way or another, and we'll bang our head against it until we end up suffering. And one of the things I learned in early sobriety is it's okay to say, I don't know. I don't have to have the
Right.
answer to everything. I'm not the expert at everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's an unrealistic expectation to think that you're going to be the expert at every single thing.
Right.
And when you can say, I don't know, all of a sudden you become teachable and you can actually learn something as opposed to being a know-it-all and being completely unteachable.
Right.
I
That's
mean,
exactly right.
just our field, that the insulation field, you take that one small field all around, all these other trades, there is a lifetime of knowledge to learn in that one field. So
Yeah.
how can you possibly be a know-it-all about everything else? And I'm still learning all the time. I do webinars, I do BPI trainings, anything that IDI offers for free. I'll take
Mm-hmm.
the class, I
Yeah.
mean, blower door certifications, you name it, because the more you learn, the more valuable you are. And I could go bid a project and do a walkthrough on the project and offer a world of knowledge that a regular sales guy can't.
Mm-hmm.
And that wins me jobs. But then if you take me where here in Florida, somebody considers me to be the expert, but you take one of these guys on spray foam worldwide and put me next to him, all of a sudden I'm not the expert anymore. So there's
Right.
still a ton to learn. And,
Yes.
I got to keep an open mind to that I'm never going to know it all. And I think that's a good place to be because you can continue to grow and continue to learn.
Exactly. I mean, in that group, we've seen it grow, and we've seen the connections that have been made, and we've seen the impact of those connections, and it's beautiful
It is.
because it's why I always am so proud to be in that group is especially for the men in that group that have connected because of exactly what you were just saying. It is ridiculous to think that men should be this like force of nature that is indestructible and you can do it all and you're supposed like get out of here. We're human beings. Everybody has a point of breaking. Everybody needs help. Everybody needs that. Like whoever created that expectation, it makes me mad because you guys get a hard rap on a lot of those things. And I see it all the time on Facebook, people posting about like this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, men you need a break. You need to have a break.
It's ego and it's pride and
It's
it's
so much ego and
all
pride.
these things that it's what we just talked about. It's our heads telling us that as men
Yeah.
we can't be any less than. We have to be smarter, stronger,
Right.
better, and you learn by failing, really. So,
Yep.
I mean, you have to have a teacher and you have to keep trying, or
Yeah.
else you're stuck to your own devices. And
Hmm.
my own devices get me nothing good. So, I'll take a
Right.
good teacher any day over me being the teacher of myself.
Right. You guys started, and I don't think I've seen it for a couple of weeks, but people were posting in Worldwide on Mondays about their stories, and I was so excited to see that. I talked to Chris Cullum about it, and I just said, and Jennifer Edwards and you, and
Hmm.
I mean, That is such an important thing to do, and that's why I said somebody today needs this conversation. They may not say a word, but they're watching, and they need to know they're going to be okay. They can be
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, you can be okay. You absolutely
Mm-hmm.
can. You know, Chris is a great example. Jennifer's a great example of
Mm-hmm.
you can really put this thing behind you and have a great life. And it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have to own you. It doesn't have to be your sole identity as an addict or an alcoholic or any of those things. I'm open with it, and I'm so glad that there's other people that are open with it, because if I don't share
Mm-hmm.
this with somebody, how are they going to know there's a way out? You know,
Right.
there's so much stigma wrapped around this that says that we can't talk about it. I'll be
Mm-hmm.
judged. I don't care if I'm judged anymore. If I can
Yeah.
reach one person and show them that it's possible, then it's worth it. You know, it's
Yes.
100% worth it. And I got hired in my company with full knowledge of my background and everything. So I didn't have
Mm-hmm.
to hide anything there. I'm able to do things like this. There's no secrets. They know all
Right.
about it. You know, I'm open with my guys because in the field that we're in, drugs and alcohol are rampant in
Yes.
construction.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, there's just a culture of we bust our ass all day and we're going to drink hard at night and we're going to do it again. And,
Yes.
you know, it tears people down, it tears families apart. And I try my best to show that it doesn't have to be that way. You can have a really healthy, good life and still do the same trade. You know, you don't have
Right.
to finish the day with a case of beer. You can finish the
Right.
day by going to the gym. You know, you can do something totally different.
Yeah, exactly. Something healthy. And it's, I think too, it becomes part of the culture that, okay, like you're saying, okay, we've like busted our ass. We're going to go drink and whatever and carry on. And we're going to come back and we're so tough because we did this. Well, no, that doesn't make you tough. That doesn't make you anything. Like it's going to end you up in trouble. I mean, I
Yeah,
have
it's like
had,
a badge of honor. I
right,
dragged my ass in here every day after drinking all night. Okay,
I'm
well, I got 8
hungover.
hours of sleep, and I come in every morning. I feel way better than you do.
Right. Yep, exactly. I mean, I've done that to myself. I have drank in like to the point of just being a wreck in the worst points of my life. I've drank too much and I should have known better, but that's what I did. And I know better now that, that doesn't, it makes it 10 times worse because what happens is you drink, or whether it's drinking or drugs, but with drinking, that's what I have experience with. You end up coming out of that hungover. Your anxiety is at an all-time high. It's a depressant. It's not making you happy, but people mask it as, and it's becoming, especially with women, it's become that, uh, like in the mom culture of,
Well,
that's
yeah,
like,
wine parties in the middle of the day, and
right? I mean, I know back when my kids were little, I was working, so I was at work, but I had people that I'm not affiliated with anymore. But in those days, they would be calling me on Friday and go like, they stayed at home. They would have play dates with their kids. They would call me and tell me to like tell them you're sick so you can come and join us. We're having at that time coolers, like wine coolers were the big. We're drinking coolers on the deck. Like I'm like I have to work. Like I'm working. I'm not going. Like I'm sick at 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon. No, but it was always disguised as a play date, and
yeah,
that is a dangerous. It's dangerous to create that like it's okay
well,
because
that's the sales world too. Is
yeah. Oh
these
yes.
these business meetings are just
Uh-huh.
it's hanging out and drinking, and it's yes, you're building a relationship. I get that, but it doesn't have to look like that. And I
No.
remember that was a fear that I had as I was growing on the
Right.
sales side and actually starting to meet with distributors and people like that and trying to work deals. And everyone wants to meet for lunch at a bar.
Yep.
And I was like, man, is this going to hold me back? Like
Hmm.
that I can't meet them for drinks? Is this something that's going to keep me from growing?
Yeah.
And it turns out it's not. You know, it's just
So
you can build relationships.
did you find that hard to get around? Like that, if you were put in that situation in the beginning or even now, is it hard to be in that situation, or how did
It's
you
not
get through it?
hard. It's not hard for me to, I mean, I can go to a meeting and everybody around me can drink and I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah,
I can say no and have water or whatever, but the fear was not being able to build the relationship because
right,
they have we're going to go to the game and we're going to drink. And I'm like, oh, great. Well, these guys aren't going to want to take me to a game because now I'm going to make
right.
them feel weird. And it's not me that feels weird. I don't want them to be like, oh, well,
Yep.
can I drink? I'm like, please enjoy yourself. I don't care what you do.
Hmm.
I don't hate drinking. I don't hate alcohol or anything like that. It just doesn't agree with me at all.
Yeah,
It takes me to a real bad spot. And I don't want anybody
yeah.
else to change their life because of me. You know, as far
It,
as if they're successful with their drinking careers and they can do it
yeah,
recreationally, by all means,
right.
please continue.
Yeah.
Um, I had to find other ways, basically. The
Hmm.
lunch meetings were actual lunch meetings where we ate instead of meeting at a bar, we'd eat at a restaurant somewhere.
Right.
Um, I still bring my builders bottles of booze at Christmas time because that's what they
Hmm.
want. They want a bottle of
Yeah.
18-year-old scotch. They don't want a wreath. That is not what they
Right.
want. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I still play the game. I just
Hmm.
don't participate. I try to change the board, if you will,
Right.
to be able to something a little bit more fitting. And
Hmm.
if I don't build the same relationship, that's okay too, as long as I have some type of relationship where I'm still growing and I still am able to go to my distributor and talk to them on a regular basis. And I found out it doesn't matter if you're slinging a bunch of their product, they're going to be there for you, period. It doesn't matter if you
Regardless.
went and had
Yeah.
beers with them. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because your money.
Yeah, and I remember my brother going through that with when he worked for a company, and he was the guy that would come and take the sales teams out for lunch, and he had an expense account, and he started noticing the only reason they were there is because he was paying the bill, and so it was endless.
Free
Like they
booze.
would free. He finally decided, not because he had a problem or anything, he just decided, you know what, that's not what this is about. Like, we're here for business. This is, and celebrating whatever it is. This is not an endless bar tab. So he put a limit on it. And it was funny. He said, it's interesting to me that they stay for the mandatory, like, one drink or two drinks or whatever the limit he put on there, and then they go home. They don't want to pay for it themselves. And he said it was ridiculous because they would, if it was free, like, and
Oh
it was
yeah.
kind of, it was a thing that was like, that's what they're supposed to do. Like, we work hard, so they need to treat us. And it's like, that's not what it's about.
Ooh, hold on a second.
Oh,
You're
okay.
freezing up on me. Make sure my Wi-Fi is still good. No, you're
It's
good.
just, yeah, I just
You
always want to
froze
make
for a
sure that
second.
anybody who is watching and going to watch this down the road, who's just getting maybe early into recovery or just thinking about that's what they want to do and they don't quite know how to, take that step, that there are ways you can get around it. And it's those people that you're trying to, like, be a part of. What you're saying is so true. It's they are uncomfortable with what you're doing. It's not you're
Yeah,
uncomfortable with what you're doing. They're uncomfortable,
yeah.
and that's what
And
causes
it
it.
hasn't held me back in any way that I can
Yeah.
see. I mean, I've flourished more in 5.5 years of sobriety than I ever did for my 30 something years that I was out there drinking and drugging. I mean, it's been incredible the growth that I've had. And the big thing is to be able to reach out to people. Is like we were talking about with this RCO. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm also on. I'm a co-chair for it's the recovery committee, and we're underneath a coalition, which is a nonprofit that my wife is the coordinator for. It's called the Alliance for Substance Addiction Prevention,
Mm-hmm.
and that committee, our main job is to focus on roadblocks in recovery is what we call them. So
Mm,
stumbling blocks that keep people back. Like most of us are convicted felons, stuff like that.
yeah.
Finding safe housing, finding places that will hire felons. Because I mean, getting a
Right.
job is important. You're not going to maintain your sobriety if you can't put food on the table.
Hmm.
Probably going to go back to whatever type of life you're doing and making money that way.
Right.
So we focus on that. We focus on stigma, trying to make it easier and more approachable for people to say that they want recovery, to speak out, um, providing platforms for. We gave out. We had a Narcan giveaway
Right.
where one of my friends, it's another nonprofit, it's called the Recovery Epicenter Foundation. They filed for this grant and they got, I'm probably not saying the right number, but thousands of doses of Narcan.
Hmm.
And then I got to go up and be on this panel and share my experience with Narcan, which unfortunately I do have experience with it. I've been saved
Right.
5 times in the past with Narcan.
Hmm.
And my wife's in the kitchen. What's Narcan, Caesar? Did you guys know what Narcan is?
I think you should I know what Narcan is, and I wanted to ask you about that because I know you see a lot of that when you're talking about stigma and you're talking about Narcan. There's people
Yeah.
out there, yeah, screaming from the rooftops. It is don't do it. You're encouraging them to keep going, blah blah blah. So yes, please explain what that is.
Okay, so first off, Narcan or not, was it naloxone? Is that the right term? We're just gonna call it Narcan.
Okay.
It's an it's an overdose reversal drug. It's an
Hmm.
opiate blocker. So when it's administered, if somebody's in um, full overdose, it stops the effects of the overdose temporarily so that they can get medical help.
Right.
And it's a life-saving treatment, just like a defibrillator would be, or an EpiPen, anything
Hmm.
like that. This is not any type of treatment. People compare it to, they're giving away Narcan for free. Why don't we get free insulin or things like that?
Hmm.
Because this is not an ongoing thing that's a treatment. This is just to save a life immediately, emergency response, so that you can get them to the hospital and
Right.
do those type of things.
Hmm.
But it's so different now with the fentanyl and everything that people are just dropping. People that, I'm not even talking about lifetime addicts, high school kids that are trying to drug for the first time.
Yeah.
It might have fentanyl in it and they're overdosing. And one of the big arguments is, well, there's these junkies out there and, they've
Yeah.
had it 4 times. Why should we keep administering it? Well,
Yes.
that's why I sit on these panels and say, well, was 5 times too many? Ask my daughters if 5 times was too many.
Right.
Ask my company, ask my wife, ask my community if 5 times was too many, because
Yeah.
I'm going to say it's not, because that's the only time, that's the only reason that I'm sitting here.
Hmm.
So we got with that grant, and well, I say we, but Rachel, our friend,
Yeah.
got the grant, and we got something like 1,000 doses of Narcan, and we put this panel together, and it's
Hmm.
me, um, a woman who lost her son to an overdose. She tells
Hmm.
her experience. We have
Yeah.
a pharmacist. We have a captain of the sheriff's department,
Hmm.
and we all sit there in a town hall forum and take questions from the audience and
Yeah.
explain it. And really, my part is the stigma. Um, parents will parents don't want to take it home because am I enabling them if I have it in the house? And I say, no, you're not
Right.
enabling them. They're not thinking about you. When you're in active addiction, they're not thinking if you have Narcan, you don't have Narcan. They're just going to use. They're going to do what they do, and you're preparing yourself for the worst. That you might
Right.
actually be able to save a life as opposed to not having it and regretting it and losing a son, daughter, brother, sister. So
Hmm.
we gave out something like 250 doses that day. It got media coverage. Then the sheriff's department of another county called us, and it's not
Hmm.
in their budget. And we were able to provide Narcan to their sheriff's department.
Right.
Our local or our local police department reached
Hmm.
out to us because there's so many overdoses that they went through what they had. and we're going to provide them with Narcan. So not only are we educating the general public, providing Narcan to people that can save a life, but also to law enforcement. And that's breaking down a big barrier, because the addicts are supplying the Narcan to the sheriff's department. So, it's such a cool bridge building, relationship building thing. And it breaks down that stigma between law enforcement and the recovery community, because it shows that we can all work together for the common cause of saving lives.
Yes. I mean, it goes, and when you're talking about stigma, that is, I think people have this belief that addicts or alcoholics or whatever, they've all come from some kind of a terrible, like, I'll use this term and people probably get mad at me, but poor white trash, that kind of mentality that you see in movies. And that is not the case. Like, kids are at school. What if they decide, like, it went on when we were in school. It went on when I was in school. You do it because, oh, well, like, I'm going to just, it's what's going on in the party, and, it's just Friday night. You don't think about you're going to be addicted. You don't think about those things. It's just, it's what you're doing at the party, and there's no thought process in it. It's just what you do.
And you never know. You never know what.
You don't.
Each person is so different that one person, two people can be at the same party trying the same drug that night.
Yeah.
One could have a lifetime of addiction because of that first one they picked up, because they have that thing like I had in me that says, if one's good, two's better, five's better. And we keep going and going and going. And where the other guy said, well, I got a buzz, that was fun, that's enough for me. We're all wired very differently. You don't know who is going to run with it and who's not.
Yeah.
So, this isn't like it used to be. This isn't white trash. This isn't projects. This is everybody being affected. Upper middle class, right down to the lowest class, all the way up to the richest of the rich.
Yeah.
I grew up, my parents were wealthy. My dad owned a bunch of bars. I didn't want for anything, and I ended up the way that I ended up. And I know people that trauma is one of the reasons, they're covering up, having to deal with the trauma. And there's all types of ways that you can end up there. But at least for me, the most important thing is making recovery available and stigma-free to anybody that wants it. Because I don't know anybody that's an addict or an alcoholic that's full-blown that wants to be the way they are. They're just afraid.
Right.
They're afraid somebody's going to find out. They're afraid of the change, whatever it may be. And the more people that can stand up and show what successful recovery looks like, the easier it is for the next person to say, okay, I want that. How do I get it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's no longer a problem that's segregated to a certain group of people. It's everywhere. Like, I was at my doctor's office this last week. On the wall these are you will not get, doctor whatever the name was, will not prescribe these prescriptions. You will not get these at this clinic. And it listed out, it was a long list. And it was opioid and I don't know how to say that. Yes, that's it. Yeah. It was listed, and I thought, I've never seen that in a doctor's office ever. Like,
it's a different time now.
It's a different time, and it's rampant, and it is, like you say, it could be just that one time. It's one time is all it is.
It's scary out there right now. Again, I'm extremely grateful that I got sober when I did, because I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you if I hadn't.
Right.
I'll give you some other little highlights of what we've got going on. We ASAP, which is short for Alliance for Substance Addiction Prevention. We've got our big Christmas brunch coming up, and I got to be Volunteer of the Year last year. And so I get to give out the awards this year. So I get to go there and recognize all the volunteers that bust their butts in our community and give out the awards and give the pats on the back, because this is all volunteer. There's all these people
Yeah.
that I'm talking about, myself, the people that are getting the grant money, we all have regular jobs. We do
Hmm.
all of this on the side, and we're building up all of this stuff on the side,
Yeah.
taking the trainings for recovery coach, going through all the planning for the RCO. That's stuff we do on our own time. So once
Hmm.
a year, we all get together and we have a brunch, and we go through all the things that we've done that year, and we recognize the volunteers and give out the awards for that. And it's nice. These people, including
Yeah.
myself, my wife, they bust their butts. I work
Yeah.
8, 10 hour day, and then I got to go to a planning committee, and then I got to go to a meeting, and then I got to read with somebody, and it
Right.
turns into a 16-hour day, but it's well
Hmm.
worth it. You know,
Right.
we literally want to change our entire environment, our entire county, and we want to work outward like the ripple effect
Yes.
so we can change what recovery looks like to people and drop the stigma that's attached to it
Hmm.
and advocate even at a state and federal level where we can make changes for this. And it's a good time to do it because it's an epidemic
Yeah.
right now, and people are listening and people are willing to put money into this. If you want to
Yeah.
if you want a better community, have more people in recovery. Because if you think that crime is bad, which everybody does,
Hmm.
more people in recovery make it better. We're giving back to our community instead of taking
Right.
from it.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. I wanted to ask you as well about, you guys have young kids. How do you talk to them about this? What, how, what, or like, how does that work with you guys and your kids? Because I think that's the conversation has to start very early, not, when you're 30 years old, and it needs to start at a younger age because it is a different time. So how do you guys do that with your kids?
Well, so we're a blended family. Yeah, I came
Yeah.
into the marriage with one child, and she came in with her child. Now, her daughter, which is now, I should say, our daughter,
Mhm.
um, went to meetings with her, knows all about it, is very versed and understands everything
Mhm.
that's going on. My daughter that I brought into the relationship had never heard anything about it. All she
Right.
knows is daddy doesn't drink. And I remember explaining some things to her, but they got this wrong impression that alcohol was bad. So
Mm.
it was cute. We were in the store the other day, and they walked by and they saw the beer aisle,
Yeah.
and and Maya says, "Is this one of those black markets that I hear about?" I said, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "Well, there's alcohol. So is this a black market?" No, honey, this is a grocery store. This isn't a black market. Alcohol's not bad. Alcohol just doesn't do well with daddy and mommy.
Right.
We
Yeah.
can't drink it. At 7 years old, I'm not going into the crazy
Right.
stuff yet. Fortunately, again, my wife, she works for the coalition. She coordinates the
Mhm.
coalition, and they partner with a local healthcare organization called Baycare, and they offer all kinds of prevention education. They go into schools, and it's all
Mhm.
for free. Any school that wants it, anyone that needs services, they send people in, and they'll even send people like me in to be able to talk about what it's really like on a
Right.
high school level or something like that. But they've got curriculum going all the way down to the littlest young ones. I got to tell a watered down version of my story
Mhm.
to elementary and middle schoolers. So, I mean, at 7, they're not quite there, but they're almost there because we're
Yeah.
teaching very young now.
Mhm. Yeah. And I mean, they have to be able to comprehend it too, so it's got to be explained in a way that they understand.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, that's why I say it's a very watered down version of my
Yeah.
story. I
So
can't tell that,
when you talk to teenagers, that now
I give it
how
to
does
them.
that look?
Yeah, I tell them exactly how it started, how it was, where it
Mhm.
led me, everything that came. came through. You know,
Hmm.
I don't water it down. I know when I was 15, 16 years old, nobody was telling me something I hadn't heard before. So
Right.
I feel like they need to hear it and where this will take them and where it took me and
Yeah.
what can happen and the amount of people that I've seen die,
Hmm.
trying to stay high, just
Right.
to living in that. And they need to know that that's real. I used to go into not used to, I still go into this treatment center, but they used to have a list on the wall of
Hmm.
everybody who died of an overdose when they left the treatment center. But the list
Ah,
got so long. I mean, it was a morbid thing, but we used to refer to it all the time. We'd bring a meeting in there
yeah.
and I'd point up and be like, well, see those five guys there?
Hmm.
I was in here with them when I went through treatment in here. They're
Right.
gone. We'd use that as an example, but I don't feel like you shouldn't sugarcoat it because it's
No.
ugly,
Yeah.
and you can't really scare somebody into recovery. That's not going to work, but letting them know what it really looks like when you stay out there, I think is important.
Right. Yeah, I think too, in today's day and age, with like the lack of that human connection and the lack of it's so everything's so automated and technology and it that fear, I don't even know that that would work because they don't it's not something
But
that
they're
you understand
disconnected.
anymore. Totally. Yeah.
The only
It's
the
like it's
only
not
reason
real.
yeah, exactly. You're talking about a
Hmm.
movie or you're talking about something they can't
Yeah.
relate to it. And that's again that connection, those relationships that I've built are what keeps
Yeah.
it real, person to
Right.
person,
Hmm.
explaining where I came from and what I went through, as opposed to, a bunch of kids watching a video in a
Right.
classroom about some guy. I can show them and I can tell
Yeah.
them the names out of my own mouth and let them see what I look like now. And I've got
Hmm.
mugshots and stuff of what I looked like then, and they can
Yeah.
see it in person.
Yeah.
And it has more of an impact, but the digital thing, it makes it hard. We're talking about keeping things in our heads. Well, you don't even have to talk to a real person anymore. You can
Exactly.
Amazon stuff to your door. You can order your food in. You
Yeah.
can completely work remote from home, and you can go days without actually having human interaction.
Yeah.
And it,
It's not good.
that's tough. That's tough for
Hmm.
when you need support because you're not going to get it, and you probably won't ask for it because you can justify,
Yeah.
rationalize anything you want in your head to say you
Hmm.
don't need it, and
Yeah.
you're just sitting there suffering and dying by yourself when if you surround yourself with some people and actually ask for help and reach out, then you can get the change that you're looking for.
No, exactly. Exactly. And I think too, it becomes a place where people are so geared now that they filter out their face with all those things that you can do with cameras now. Like you're not even people aren't even being a real person anymore. So what they
Mm-mm.
see is they like in your situation, they can see that mugshot and they can see you now. But what they don't see is like the work it took to get there. And I think it's what I'll always say. People need to share that hard truth. It's not all like, oh yeah, I was here and now I'm here. There was a lot of stuff in the middle,
There
and
was
it's
a
not
lot.
easy. It's not easy.
I didn't have a license for almost 10 years.
Mhm.
So in early sobriety, I walked like 15, 20 miles a day looking for a job, going to meetings, going to
Mhm.
probation. I took a service commitment at a detox to bring meetings into. That was 10 miles from my house. I took
Mhm.
it just because somebody said, hey, if you want to stay sober, that's what you're going to do. And I said, okay. So I'd walk 10 miles
Mhm.
there. If I was lucky, I'd find a ride home. If not, I'd walk the 10 miles back home.
Mhm.
And I mean, I wore out some shoes on foot,
Yep.
but that work is what paid off in the end, that I was
Mhm.
willing to do what I had to do to stay sober. One of the things that was on the post was gratitude. I was grateful
Right.
that I walked by all these bars and I had no temptation to go into them because I was
Mhm.
focused on where I was going. I was grateful for my sobriety, so I acted grateful by trying to help the next person.
Right.
I helped some guy move, and he gave me a bicycle. I was grateful because I could do
Yeah.
more than three things in a day by being on a bicycle instead of on foot,
Yeah.
and busted my ass to finally get a license back to get the job that I have now, because that
Hmm.
was 20 miles from my house, and I had to be there at 6:30 in the morning, and there's just no way I would have to I would have
Yeah.
to leave at midnight and start walking to get to work
Right.
by then.
Hmm.
So I was told that I would never get a license back, but I didn't care what anybody said. I kept trying. You know,
Yeah.
as long as there's another option, I'm going to try it until I've exhausted everything. And I got my license back, and that's
Hmm.
what was the platform to be able to get the job, to work my way up, and do all of
Right.
these things. There's a ton of work between. I know what you're talking about, the purple hair picture and the
Right.
in the today's picture. There's
Yeah.
just a ton of work, but it's grateful work. I was grateful to go through
Yeah.
everything I went through so that I can now turn around and give back to
Yes.
what saved my life. And that's what
Hmm.
makes my life better today.
Yeah.
That makes me a better dad. That makes me a better person. I just have to be willing to take the opportunities for service when they come in my path, because I can always go back to being selfish and self-centered and say, I don't have time for that. I'm busy making money,
Hmm.
or I'm moving on to the next good thing. But if I do that, I go backwards. I have to
Right.
continue to take the opportunities to help.
Is that something, are there days that you struggle with, maybe I'm just going to try that again, or is that something you ever, like, you don't miss it anymore, or there's that want to just maybe try it one more time? Do you ever
No,
have those days, or you don't?
I don't. But I think the reason that I don't is because I stay so close to the recovery community. So
Right.
I see people that are still in it. I have all these
Hmm.
examples. I go into rehabs. I see people who are still shaky. I have
Right.
constant reminders of what I don't want. It's if I
Hmm.
got away from all that, that's when the thinking would probably go, yeah, you could probably have a beer. It's been almost 6 years. You're
Right.
okay. And
Yeah.
I can't play with that. So I stay plugged in, so that way I constantly have reminders of that's
Yeah.
me. The guy that's shaking, asking me for help, that's me. That's what I look
Yeah.
like. So I don't have those kind of triggers or any of those things anymore. It doesn't sound like a good idea up here anymore, where it used to be like, well,
Right.
hey, yeah, I don't have
Yeah.
anything to do this weekend. I could do a little bit, but all that's
No.
gone.
Yeah.
It's not an
Well,
option, I guess you would say.
yeah, and I think that's important that you said that, is staying plugged into the community you have, because I know you guys lost somebody a few months ago, and it was exactly what that person was trying to, his message that he was giving, he wasn't doing it himself by the sounds of what you guys posted. I don't want to
Yeah,
like
he
overspeak, but yeah, you got
no,
to
no,
stay
because
connected.
we want him to be remembered. He did a lot of good work.
Hmm.
Um, his name's Austin Eubanks. He is a
Yeah.
Columbine survivor,
Right.
and he came and he did um, ASAP, Alliance for Substance Addiction Prevention, our big convention that we have at this golf and country club, and he was the main speaker. And some of the advice that he was giving and he speaks so eloquently, and just
Hmm.
that's a story of trauma. The
Right.
seeing his best friend get shot next to him, he got shot, seeing an entire school shooting, and he was prescribed the painkillers and these things for
Yeah.
his wounds, and he never dealt with the trauma, and he
Hmm.
stayed numb, and every time he wouldn't be numb, the trauma would come back and he'd have to numb
Right.
again. But what he said is spend more time in circles than you do on stage, meaning
Yeah.
that spend more time in your recovery circles than you do standing up there on stage preaching about it. And it sounds like he didn't take his own advice, that
Yeah. Well, you get caught up in that,
it's
I think, too, right? Like,
it,
you're doing all this speaking, and there's people that are like, they're kind of praising you for what you're
mm,
doing. And I think you
yeah,
forget, you've got to step back and go, oh my, like, I got to stay grounded.
You
They
have to
lose
stay
their
grounded
grounding.
because
Yeah,
just because you're a good speaker doesn't mean that you don't still have to receive the help.
right,
I could take all the addiction classes in the world and be an expert on addiction. It doesn't mean I can fix myself. As soon as
right.
I stop doing those basic things that got me sober, I probably won't
Hmm.
stay sober. There's no graduate class, there's no finish line. This is
Yeah,
life. This
yeah,
is every day. I got to put the things in place that keep me sober, or I run the risk of going backwards.
right.
So, yeah, it's not a race. It's definitely a marathon. It's the journey, and I enjoy the journey today. It sounded like a
Hmm.
death sentence getting sober in the beginning. I was like, ooh, what do you
Yeah.
mean sober? Like, slow down. You mean like never ever again? And I
Hmm.
had to wrap my head around that. And that's where people tell you, just for today or one day at a time. I needed that in the beginning because I couldn't picture a future with drugs and alcohol or without. Like I couldn't picture either. I knew that I was
Yeah,
going to crash and burn, but I also couldn't imagine what it would look like without it. It was scary.
yeah,
But if you just focus on today or even just the next 24 hours, like that's all I've got to get through.
right.
It made it easier. I don't have to
Yeah,
focus on 10 years from now because 10 years from now is not promised anyway. Be lucky if I'm
right.
here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really, people either get stuck in the past or they get caught up in the future, I think. And, there's all this thing about setting goals and doing all this stuff 5 years down the road, 10 years. I think that there's some merit to that, but I also think that gets you too far ahead. And focusing on that takes you out of being present. And you got to stay present in
You can
right
set the
now.
goal. You can set
Yep.
the goal. It's good to have goals, but
Yes.
your feet have to be on the ground now and take the
Right.
steps towards that goal.
Yes.
I mean, the footwork happens in the now. What are you doing right now? And that's what sets you up to work towards that goal. And
Hmm.
somebody I respect told me, if you're filled with anxiety, you're
Yeah.
living too far in the future. And
Yes.
if you're feeling a ton of depression, you're probably living too far in the past. And if you're
Hmm.
centered, you're probably living in the now because you can focus on what's
Yeah.
going on around you right now.
Yeah.
And I found that
It's
to be true.
that is that is very wise words for sure. So I'm just looking at some of the comments here. I know, let me scroll back here. Shauna Pace says nobody, oh, I think this is when we were talking about being an expert in your field. She said nobody's an expert. There's always going to be somebody that knows more than you.
Absolutely.
John Busto says keywords, thinking and faith. Um, Rusty Schrader, 100% face-to-face handshake will sell way better.
100%, brother.
Yeah. And I think, with you and Rusty both coming on here and talking about these things has opened the doors massively to people who are scared. They don't think they can make it. They don't think they can do those things. And you guys have opened that door, along with others in worldwide who have come out and talked about their story. There's been some pretty intense stories shared in there. And
Do
I
you follow John
appreciate,
Bustos?
I do. Yep.
That's pretty inspirational stuff, John.
I met John Bustos in Houston about 3 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago. So yeah, I've met him actually in person too. Yeah,
He is a
he's
guy that
really
is not afraid of change. Let me tell you,
right.
he
Yes,
he
that's true.
has. I'm inspired by him. I follow him, and
Hmm.
I see everything he's doing right now and all the changes he's making, and
Yeah,
I enjoy watching him.
I
I get
remember.
to see his growth. I've never met him, and I don't know him on a personal level, but I see
Yeah,
what he's doing, and it's inspiring to me.
I remember when he posted the video he posted about and he was in tears, talking about how his language and how he was speaking so hurtfully to his loved one that, and he made that video and it was so incredibly raw and it was so incredibly real. I think people were like, because again, that puts people in that uncomfortable place, and
Hmm.
he, being a man, that is something like people were, what is he doing? And I remember messaging him and just saying, I am so proud of you because That's not easy. And to admit you're doing those things and you're putting it out there, that's a big step.
And then,
That's a huge
and
step.
all the steps he's followed with to change too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he is like a spiritual guru at this point.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, he's been doing a bunch of cool things. So maybe in 2020 he'll have to come on and share some of those things with us.
Oh, that would be a cool one.
Yeah, for sure. But I know somebody, our behind the scenes, Charlie's Angels, has been sharing your link to the Pasco County Alliance for Substance Addiction Prevention.
Yep, that's a
So it's in
perfect
the
link to
comments
share.
there. So I think it's important for people to know that they can reach out anytime.
It
It's
is, and
safe
my
to do that.
messenger is always open.
Yeah,
That's why we did the post that we did in Spray Foam Worldwide. That's
yeah,
also to decrease stigma and open the door for anybody that wants help and wants to just to have a conversation. Um, and the community's been amazing in Spray Foam
yeah,
Worldwide. They accepted it with open arms. And
yeah,
after Chris's post, I mean, like, I don't know how many people commented, but hey, I'm in recovery too. Hey, I'm in recovery. I've got this many days, and I
yeah.
was like, man,
It
look at the
was
floodgates just opened up.
right. And I know I've talked to Chris behind the scenes, and he's coming on in December. So I'm excited that he's coming on too.
Awesome.
But it's and it's a scary thing to put it out there, especially in a group of almost 9,000 people, because you get that's a mixed bag in there.
It
You
is.
don't know what you're going to get back, but I am proud of every single person who's been strong enough and vulnerable enough to share those stories, their stories, because it's helping people. It's helping somebody.
That's the only reason we put ourselves out there is the hopes that
Yeah.
we can help, even if it's just one person, that
Yeah.
it's worth it.
It's totally worth it. What else do you have anything else you want to add in before we say goodbye?
I think that's about it. We covered a lot.
We did. It's awesome having you on. I just always appreciate talking to you.
Yes, I really enjoyed it. I'm glad we did the broad scope of what to talk about when you asked me for a topic, and I just kind of barked a
Yeah.
bunch of things out there because
Yeah.
it made for a good conversation. 'Cause I didn't
Yeah.
really know what to talk about.
Right. We're going to have Kelly's going to come on. We're going to get her scheduled in because we had to reschedule because she had something conflict
Hmm.
that day that she was coming on. But we're going to get her in 2020 to come back on. So I think it's important that because she's got lots to share too. So
Oh, she's good.
yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, our man behind the scenes, I think we're going to wrap it up. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, Cesar, so much for being on. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it as well. And thank you, man, behind the scenes. You're the bomb.
Yes, the man behind the scenes is the one running the show, so we appreciate
Pay no
you.
mind to the man behind the curtain.
That's right. All right, we'll answer there's a bunch of comments on the live feed, so we'll go back and answer those. And thank you guys so much. We appreciate it.
Here.
All right.